Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome, people. All right, folks, this is the season finale, episode 111. This is season 6. I brought you guys 11 episodes this season, 10 amazing guests. I had one solo episode in there. And man, I tell you guys, I'm just so lucky, I think, to be able to talk to these amazing women. And I love also hearing from you guys too, because you all send me messages about how listening to these episodes have either helped you start your business or expand your business. So I've told you guys this before, but it really it just kind of fuels me. And it's funny because I know some of you guys don't have businesses, but you still just love hearing stories about amazing women, entrepreneurs and leaders. So I just want to, thank you guys for kind of sticking with me, listening, sharing the episode, rating me, and just giving me the motivation I need to keep going, because it's really like you and your stories that inspire me. And to end this season, I have Morgan Harper Nichols on here, who is an artist and a poet. And I think she is the perfect person to have on to end this season, because she's very inspirational. I love like her art and her messages. And I just feel this is like the perfect end to season 6 as I go on a little bit of a break. Also, I just want to mention that I skipped posting this last week after, hearing about the death of George Floyd, and then with everything that was just going on within our nation, within the world. I needed a minute. It didn't feel right to post things, because I just felt like everybody everywhere just needed to take a pause and listen to what was going on and understand, why something needs to be done about this. And so I just couldn't bring myself to posting it. It was funny. I had it all ready to go, and then I just pulled it back because and for those of you guys who know, I'm in DC, but as I was like watching and listening to things unfold, I was like, no, I need to pause. And I felt like you guys probably needed to do that too. But anyway, I'm glad I did, because it really just gave me time to reflect. And I know a lot of you also, to figure out how you can make a difference and how you can figure out to stop this from happening. And then this is really living in a world where people are still judged by the color of their skin. And because of that judgment, sometimes that leads to death. It's hard for me to even say it, because it just makes me upset. And I've recorded this multiple times, and the last time I recorded this, I said the same thing, because I just literally cannot find the words, because I just cannot believe that this is even a problem in 2020. It should have never been a problem, but I just can't believe that because of the color of one's skin, an encounter can lead to death. And it makes me angry. It's not right. It's not fair. Things need to change. But I feel like the time is now. I feel like people are like, enough is enough, and they are going to vote. They're going to make sure things that get funded should be funded. Things that should be defunded will be defunded. They're going to sign petitions. They are going to make sure the right people are in the right place, no matter what you're talking about. And I think the majority of people are going to be more mindful of how they hire, how they treat people. They're going to be more mindful on what they teach their children. I think this moment right now in history will be the beginning of major change. And I'll just leave it at that, because I have so much to say, but I don't want to take away from this episode, so I will just continue to share my thoughts on social media, or maybe next season do a solo episode once I really kind of collect and gather my thoughts. But I just want to say to all of you guys out there that it's going to take each one of us to make this change. Each one of you guys are leaders and influencers within your circle, within your community, and people will look to you and your actions and what you do, and that is how change starts. If we don't tolerate it, other people won't tolerate it, and we can start to make a difference. All right? So anyway, back again this week for the season finale. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy Morgan. With all that's going on in the world, this pandemic, I call it the revolution also that's going on. I love like the inspirational messages that she puts out, and for those kind of dark days, which we've had more than normal lately, her feed and her products kind of are very uplifting. So I really do love that she is the final guest for this season. And now we talk about a little bit of everything about, how 2 million followers doesn't mean equal $2 million, which I love that she says that. Why, she had to figure out how to diversify her income, and she gets into that a little bit. I won't put out any spoilers. She talks about Garden 24, which is her storefront, and she also talks about the importance of connecting with your audience. So anywho, great episode. And of course, to support the podcast, please subscribe to it. Rate it 5 stars. Give it a thumbs up. Sharing is caring. Please share it. I will have some swag on my website soon. So if you go to nachesnow.com and click store soon, it'll take you to a new site I'm creating called Dreams, Plans, and Ideas. I'll have some digital downloads for you guys, t-shirts, all kind of stuff. So please subscribe to my newsletter, which will pop up when you get to the site, or you could go to my About page to pick productivity or the business newsletter. And I will email you to announce the store launch. All right. Now let's get to this amazing episode. Hello, Morgan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really excited to talk to you about all the things, especially Garden 24. But even before we dig into Garden 24, for the listeners out there who may not know you, can you just tell them a little bit about you and your beginnings, how you started out?
Yes. So I grew up in a really creative family where I was just encouraged from a very young age to write stories and make things. And I was so encouraged. And at the same time, I used to find it very difficult to kind of share, because I was also a preacher's kid, and my parents were the pastors of a small church, and it's just kind of default with preacher kids, like, oh, you gotta sing and be on stage and on the platform and do all these things. And I used to just get so much anxiety just like being in front of people. I always felt just really conflicted because I was like, okay, I like connecting with people, but at the same time, I just don't necessarily feel like being like a singer or public speaker. I just really struggle with that. And then what made it even more complicated was that I actually do know how to sing and play instruments. So I spent many years just really struggling with like, okay, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do because I obviously have the skills to do it. And I do really like storytelling and connecting with people in this way. But it got to a point where it was just like, why am I so exhausted all the time? And then as I got older, it was like, why am I so exhausted and broke? Like something, like I can't be both all the time. So like something has to give here. So I essentially, I look back on it, I'm like, it was so obvious. It was there all along. Like I was always doodling. I was always writing poetry and things, but I wouldn't share it with anyone. But I have a lot of my old journals and I was always doing this stuff. It just kind of naturally, I mean, literally just in the margins of my notebooks, I would just doodle and write little things. And it wasn't until I was 26, I'm 30 now. So 4 years ago, I ended up writing, just sort of coming out of the margin literally and writing a poem in my journal that was just a poem about talking about my failures and feeling like I had wasted my time. I feel like I wasted my parents' time who had supported me. And I was married at that point, and I was just like, gosh, we're just so. I was like, how long are we going to go down this path, like of just not knowing what this is that we're doing? And because I had spent so much time in creative endeavors, I didn't really have like an impressive resume or anything. So I was like, I just felt stuck. I was like, I don't know what to do. I feel like my only skill set is to be creative, but yet it doesn't seem like there's much of a demand to hire anyone like me. So it was a huge, huge struggle for a while. And a lot of those struggles just came out in that poem. And that poem that I wrote, I shared it on Pinterest, and it ended up getting shared over 100,000 times. And
whoa.
I didn't even have like a tag on it or anything. It just kind of happened. And that was a wake up call of just like, oh, wait a second. I'm like, I may not be able to figure out how to make this a job. Because at that point I had no idea. I wasn't thinking about, oh, I should write a book, or I wasn't thinking any of that stuff. I was just like, I don't know what, but I do know that I enjoy, and it brings me life to be able to connect with people in this way, because I started to receive a lot of messages from like 16-year-old girls who were just like, thank you so much for saying this. This is just what I needed. And I was like, you know what? I may not be able to figure out how to make this a job, but I can at least write for her. And that just really launched what I'm doing now. And yeah, a lot of it was just like, well, I'll just keep going, kind of see what happens. And, if it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, then that's okay. And here we are 3.5, 4 years later, and I'm still doing that. So nowadays I have a book that came out, that's a book of illustrations and poetry, came out this past January. It's called All Along You're Blooming. And then I have an online shop where we have prints and stickers and journals and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I do. I didn't mean to give the whole bio.
My listeners know, like, I love all of that, because I think, in my podcast, what I try to like show is like how people got from point A to point B. Because I think sometimes people see people on social media or TV, or even it could be like their neighbors or people they work with, and they think like, oh, everything just came so easy, right? And it's like, well, not really, like we've all struggled and tried to kind of figure out kind of what path to take.
Absolutely.
So, at 26, you write this poem. It's from the heart. I mean, which is why people resonated with it and started to share it. But how do you go from like just sharing something that you don't intend it for it to do anything, right? You're just sharing it because this is like me speaking from my heart, and I'm just sharing it for whoever relates to it. But how do you then go from like, maybe I can do this on a larger scale?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think a lot of it because I had spent quite a few years in music, and as much as I love music, I still make music. Music is a very competitive field, and it's very hard to sustain a career in music. And one of the things that I found was I spent 2 years working on an album, and at the end of it all, I was in a lot of debt. And I was just looking at it. I'm like, this is such a strange thing. You know, I spend so much time working on something, and I'm passionate about it, and I feel like I'm sharing a message that I believe in is from like the pit of my soul. But yet, you know, why am I in debt? And why is this so hard to just like, I wasn't trying to get rich or anything. I was like,
you just want to pay your bills. Right?
Exactly. So it was very stressful. And a part of that process, one of my greatest longings of when I was in that season was just like, I wish I had just had the opportunity to share more music. But because I'm not a producer, and because I don't naturally, you know, I'm just not naturally a producer or anything like that, I was limited, and I tried to be. Believe me, I tried. Bought the mics and the software and everything, and that's just not how I'm wired. But anyway, I was just like, okay, so I can't put out more music because it's just expensive, and I'm just not skilled enough to be my own producer. Some artists can do that. My sister's like that, but I can't do it. So I was like, there's got to be a way that I can sort of share volume, like share a lot more than just a few songs every 2 years.
Right.
You know, so
with all this production. And like, right.
So when I shared that poem, that helped me realize, I was like, this is kind of in a way of sharing lyrics. And I was like, how neat is that I can just share what's on my mind, share what's on my heart, share how I want to connect with others. And it doesn't cost me a lot. I mean, obviously it costs me time.
Right.
But I make most of my art on my iPad. And so I had an iPad, I bought an iPad, and for the longest time I didn't even update it. I had like the original iPad Pro for a very long time. And yeah, it was just me and the iPad Pro, and we just went for it. So,
I know. Was Procreate out then? I can't remember. I mean, no, I love my iPad. Yeah. I'm just like, I don't even know what I did before the iPad came out.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've always loved like tinkering with art and things, but I'm really messy, and I'm actually not very good at paying attention to detail. So the undo button is that's why I make digital art, because so yes, to a lot of real artists out there, yes, it's absolutely a cop out, and I have so much respect for the real artists. But yeah, for me, it was just like, well, okay, now I can finally create every day. You know, I don't have to just like write these songs and just sit on them until I can raise enough money to have it recorded. I can just share it right now. So I started to notice that something that I struggled with, and I think a lot of my peers are struggling with, especially when it comes to Instagram, it's just this sort of curation mindset, you know, and it's like when you think about like a museum curator. Like museum curators spend years to curate a collection of art. I mean, that's like their full-time job is to curate. And I think a lot of times but they're curating someone else's work.
Right.
But we do that to ourselves. Like we start trying to curate our lives and curate our own art. And I'm like, that's a lot of time. And that's a lot of time not sharing. And for me, it was a lot of time overthinking. So for me, I want to say like the first sort of conscious thought that I had was I was like, I have to, as a creative, if I'm going to do this, because I was like, I don't really have another option. I was like, my resume doesn't really point to a lot of other options. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I was like, for myself, I have to demystify this version of like this creative who only shares their best work. It's like, I'm just going to share all of it. And the interesting thing is when I got that mindset, I actually lost a lot of followers in the beginning because I was just kind of experimenting, and not everybody was on board with Morgan's random art project that would never end. So yeah, there are some people who just kindly backed out, and that's okay. And I realized for me, when that happened and I didn't get upset about it, that's how I knew. I was like, okay, this is something I want to stick with. So I was like, this is the first time in my life when I lost followers and I didn't care.
Right.
And I was just like, no, but there's still people here who are interested in this. And I actually don't care if it's a smaller number of people right now, because I know who I'm speaking to.
Right.
So yeah, that was a pivotal moment for me. And yeah, so I even till this day, like, I try my hardest to, and for me, sharing on social media, it's not so much about like, oh, I got to make sure I get X amount of followers or even get X amount of sales in my shop. It's more about that I've turned social media sharing into a practice of generosity. So this is my way of saying, like, okay, yes, I still wake up with self-doubt. Yes, I still wake up questioning my art and if I'm a good writer and all of these things. I was like, and at the same time, I can continue to share. I can continue to say something that 16-year-old me needed to hear, that 21-year-old me needed to hear. And that's more than enough. So yeah, I still go through my slumps, and I still, like, every week I ask myself, am I an artist who writes or a writer who makes art? I don't know. I'm like, who am I? What do I do? At least once a week I have this conversation with myself. But beyond that, I've just learned, okay, even while I'm questioning, I can still share because other people are questioning themselves too. Especially these days. I mean, the world has completely changed, and a lot of us are having to ask questions that we never had to ask before, you know, personally and professionally. And so, yeah, I always just try to encourage creatives, like, you don't have to share everything, but you could probably share a little bit more than you do. And I think people would actually feel a little bit at peace and a little bit encouraged to see someone kind of opening up and sharing a bit more. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then question for you. Well, number one, what I love, and I think that listeners will take this away with them, is the key is to just start, right? It was like an iPad, an app on the iPad, an idea, right?
Yeah.
And you just start sharing, and then people who connect will follow you and want to hear more, but you just have to start and be a little bit vulnerable and not care what people think. Because I think people get caught up in that, like, even... Like, I do, like, a lot of random videos, and I have, like, a lot of, especially friends who are like, why are you on video? Like, how do you do that? I could never be on video. And I'm like, girl, I don't care. I don't have no makeup on. I'm just, like, just talking, because I'm like, you have to, like, not care what people think and just go for it. So I love that about your story. You just kind of, like, went for it. And so my question to you is, because I think a lot of people who are creative struggle with this, is, you know, you start to share things, you know, you start to build a following, and you know, like, oh my goodness, this is something I want to do. I don't want to have to go back to doing X, Y, or Z. So I need to make money off of what I do, but I don't want to feel sleazy doing it because it's from the heart. And so how is that transition for you?
Yeah, I was always, you know, just by the nature of being a 20-something who grew up with the internet and social media, I was always, and I had experimented with in many different ways of trying to have like an Etsy shop, or mostly Etsy. I had a few Etsy shops just trying random things. Like, at one point, for like 15 minutes, I was a photographer, and I had a few photos from a trip, and yeah, anyway, I tried lots of little things, and I had a few sales here and there. So I was like, I knew that there was a possibility there, but in terms of what my thing was, I did not see myself in. When I looked at a lot of other young entrepreneurs, I did compare myself a lot because I would say to myself, oh, I'm an artist. I'm not really a business person. And I would really struggle with that because I felt like the artists that I saw, and this isn't reality. This is how I was seeing it. The artists that I saw, it was just like, I was around a lot of really high energy, big personality artists. And I was just like, gosh, I'm not that. So I don't really know how to go in the artist route. And then on the business side, and this is just who I was around, the way I was kind of seeing it, I just felt like I saw a lot of people pursuing MBAs, or they had startups. And, you know, I would try to listen to podcasts and try to find like similar voices and people in similar situations. And I was like, where are the artists who were just like not quite, you know, we're not quite like tried to be like a rock star, but we're also not quite going for an MBA either. I'm just, I was like, where is that? Like, where do I go with it? So I would just try little things here and there, and nothing ever really stuck because I didn't have a lot of guidance, and I didn't even know who to go to seek guidance. Like I would see things like get a mentor. I'm like, well, what kind of mentor? Like, who's going to sit here and listen to this?
And just finding someone who's doing what you want to do, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, well, who
I
can
don't know. I don't know who to Google. I don't know what this is. And I actually still deal with that. I'm like, what am I doing? But yeah, so the thing that sort of broke me out of it was a year ago. Well, a year and a few months ago, I was, at that time, I had been sharing online quite a bit, and my work was just starting to pick up traction. And I think a lot of it just because I share a lot of it, and I share a lot of different things and styles. And my main income went from just like really sporadic freelance that was a mixture of like some music stuff to just like, okay, I'll design a logo for you. Just anything I can figure out how to do.
Right.
And then it kind of, about a year and a half ago, and a year or 2 months ago, it was starting to turn into like freelancing just on like illustrations with encouraging messages for brands. And that was, I felt really good about that because now for the first time in my life, I was seeing like contracts and I was learning about terms like net 30 and net 60. And I was like, oh, this is okay. It's starting to feel like a business. And my husband actually, he was like helping with the contracts and stuff and just reading over them and things. And we were both looking at them and we're just like, wow, like there's enough money here to earn a living. Like we could grow this to where he could work on the business side of it and manage the contracts, and then I could just do these freelance projects. However, there was one sort of major hiccup in this little plan, and it was this phrase called a cash flow. And I didn't really anticipate the fact that when you're doing a lot of freelance work, especially the bigger the clients get, because I had done like a lot of smaller stuff and I would just get paid right away. I'm like, yeah, just PayPal me or Cash App or whatever. I don't think we had Cash App back then, but you know, it's just like, yeah, just pay me however, you know, whatever, $50 here, 75 there. And eventually, you know, it starts to add up. But with these bigger contracts, there were times where you don't get paid for sometimes 90 days.
Yeah.
So
I've heard about that.
We
were
just sort of in a tough spot. And also, I forgot to mention, at this point, I'm pregnant with our first child. And we're at this point where it was like, okay, we know the money's there. It's coming.
Yeah.
But, you know, rent is due like this month. Not in 90 days.
There's no IOU. Like, yeah, you know, in 90 days.
Yeah. So, and at the time, my husband, he was also doing, like he has a background in construction, and he was doing a lot of independent contractor work. But similar thing of just like taking jobs and just kind of working. And we were like, we got to figure something out. Like, this is just, it's just really inconsistent, and we literally can't afford to wait 90 days. So, my husband actually said, he was like, well, you have all this art on Instagram. What if you just started selling prints? And I was like, okay, but I have a lot. I don't even know where to start. So he's like, okay, I'll find some. So he just got on my Instagram and picked like 5 prints, and I didn't like any of the choices that he had. I was like, no, I don't want those. I was like, I know which ones I'll do. So he's like, all right,
let me do this.
So, yeah. So I went and I picked a few prints out, and yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot an important part of the story. So that was actually part 2. Part 1 was actually when we were sort of in this pickle of like, okay, we got to figure out how to generate some revenue here. I had actually self-published like just 100 poems. It's not an illustrated book. Just self-published it on Amazon. And I had a box in my closet of where I ordered some, and they hadn't sold. And I had written it two years ago. So I think I had about 100 of them. And I actually posted to my mailing list, which doesn't even have a lot of people on it, and say, hey, I will send this to you. If you want to buy this, I'll sign it for you and I'll send it to you. And they all sold out in 24 hours.
It's the timing is everything, right?
Yeah. So it was a book that I had been sitting on for a long time that was out there, but it was just something I kind of put out there. It wasn't really like a big, project or anything. And as it turns out, and I say this to people who are listening, are interested or maybe starting, or you're scared to start. As it turns out, there are people out there who want to support you.
Right.
And it might not be everyone. It may not even be the people that you thought. Because I was surprised. I was surprised that at that point that many people were willing to support. And, and of course, it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that if you start something that everyone is gonna, or anyone is going to respond or make a purchase. But it kind of just goes back to that cliche. You never know until you try. And for 2 whole years, 2 years in between writing that book and that one, I didn't try. I didn't even try to really sell it. So
it's all that marketing. Because that for creative, that's the hard part. I always tell people, it's like, you don't want to market. You just want to make stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't market it at all. I didn't even try. So when I finally tried, out of sheer desperation, it's like,
right, okay, we need money.
We've got these books and we need to get some more money coming in here. What are we going to do? So yeah, that was a moment, and that happened. So then the prints came from like, okay, well, what's next? What else can we do? So that's where we started. We just Googled where to buy wholesale 8x10 prints. And sent off the PDF files, and they sent them back to us. And we set up a little Shopify. And at the time, I didn't even have now my store is called Garden 24. It didn't even have a name at the time. I just called it Morgan Shop. That was what the Instagram said. Everything did not have a name. I was like, maybe that's what it will be called. Right. Morgan Shop. I don't know. So yeah, I didn't have a name. I was just like, I've been sharing this thing, and it's time to invite people to invest in this if they want to. So it was out of desperation. I really wish I could say that I just woke up one day and got the confidence, but really it was when push comes to shove. And that's one thing that I just love about humans in general, is just that there's so much about us that when it comes down to it and we have to show up, we get really creative. Yeah. We can get really creative. So yeah, I think that in that way, I'm very grateful that I was able to be creative in that season, because it could have gone the other direction. I could have said, okay, I'm just going to give up. Clearly this hasn't proven to be lucrative. But I just literally went in the closet and saw those books and said, okay, that's it. Morgan shop it is.
That is hilarious. It's so funny because I think it's the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast, but the guy from there, he has this thing that's called the baby effect. So, I mean, it could apply to anything, but his whole thing is like when you're about to have a baby or some type of crisis, or it could be anything, but something that is life changing. That's his point, is that all of a sudden we get really creative. Like, the things that you were putting off for years, you're like, no, I got to find a way. I got to figure out how to do it. And it just kind of like kicks people in gear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish that wasn't the case, you know?
That we could just naturally do it.
It was easier. But when I look back over my life, I'm like, it's through that. Yeah, it's through those life altering moments that you're brought to the present moment. You know, you're brought to the reality of what it is, and I just think it's really beautiful when we can say, all right, so here's what I'm going to do with it. So yeah, definitely try to do that.
Yeah. And then, I definitely want to find out how you got to Garden 24, but one quick question before that I'm sure the listeners will want to know is, like, during this period when you decided to do that, I know you mentioned you didn't have too many people on your newsletter list at this time, but at this time, did you, had you kind of built up your social media following, or were your numbers a little bit lower then, so you were still trying to kind of find your audience? I was just curious, kind of where were you when you first started that?
I don't remember the exact numbers, but I am one of those, what do you call them? Like those stories that people who understand marketing and marketing their business, that they warn you about and tell you not to be, because I spent way too much time on the branding aspect of it, building the community. And I struggle with saying that because I'm like, well, my community, I love them. Like, that's why I do what I do. So I don't feel like I wasted time, but I definitely put all of my energy into the community aspect of it and the imagery and the story. And I didn't think about the business side of it. I mean, in the back of my mind, I was just like, okay, it'll work out. And it kind of did, because, I was getting these freelance jobs and some really big names were starting to come through. But even then, you still have to have a business strategy. So I actually did have a decent following and an engaged audience when I started the shop. I want to say, I don't remember exact numbers, but it had to have been at that point somewhere in like the 300,000 followers on Instagram range at that point. So yeah, it was at that point, it was definitely starting to pick up momentum. But I also just share that as a cautionary tale, because I really want to, anytime I share with people, I just want to let them know that, okay, you may see 100,000 followers or whatever, but that does not mean 100,000 customers.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like you have a ton of followers. So when you say that, people listen. But if I say that, they're going to be like, Nache. But I'm like, no. I've talked to people with tons of followers. But
I can tell you 1.2 million followers, that's what I have now, does not equal $1.2 million. And interestingly enough, though, this is what's interesting, because I'm going to probably get a little nerdy here and try not to go on a rant, but I personally, this is just my opinion, but I think that it is possible that because we're going on a decade now of having Instagram and people having social media on their phones, and this concept of followers and likes, it's been a part of our conversation for a long time. And I think that we are kind of getting to a point where some people, I know I am this way, where they actually desire and are seeking smaller people or smaller audiences, people with smaller audiences to support. I know I've been that way. Like, I get excited when I see, because when I'm on Pinterest and I'm looking up art, and I'll go and I'll look up an artist, I get excited when I see an artist who who doesn't have a lot of followers and their work is amazing. I'm like, oh, I really want to support this person now. So I'm just hopeful that I'm like, I feel like that's just sort of my positive thought about it. I'm like, I hope that that's going to continue to be a trend that we see, is that people can shine and create sustainable businesses without followers. I absolutely, without a lot of followers, I absolutely think that's possible. So
thank you like so much for saying that, because I always tell people, just because I'm a total extrovert and I like talk to everybody, people on the street, people on the podcast. I'm just like curious about people. But I always tell them, like, yeah, followers are great. You have a larger audience, but I'm like, I've talked to people who have like 500 followers that are making 6 figures a year, right?
Yeah.
Or 200,000 followers that are making X. It's like really just finding that community and just starting. And I love what you said, like even starting, because I think sometimes people are like, well, I can't sell anything until I have 20,000 followers or 10,000 followers or whatever it is. But it's like, no, but you have 3,000 people who are diehard, who love what you do, or you have like 500 people on your email list who are dying to get stuff from you. It's like, don't like count them out.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is, and because since you said you're an extrovert, this probably comes more naturally to you. But for me as an introvert, I really have to remind myself that, like you said, if you just talk to people and get to know them, it starts to come up naturally how you can serve one another. And I honestly think that was a huge part of how my audience started to grow early on, and how I started to figure out who my customer was, because I'm always responding to emails. I'm always responding to DMs. Till this day, I don't care how many followers I get. I'm going to respond to as many people as I can. And of course, I don't have time to spend hours on it a day. Right. When I open my DMs, I open it with the mindset I am here to engage with my audience.
I can only imagine how many DMs you get.
But I have to walk into it with that mindset. I'm like, even if I just talk to one person, but I've gotten so much insight on products to create just by talking to people.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about t-shirts once, and someone sent me a message. They're like, actually, I know this might sound weird, but even in the summertime, people are loving girls in my community. They love wearing like those long sleeve sweatshirts.
Oh,
and I didn't know that, because I don't get out very much, so I don't really know what people wear. But I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And I look it up, and lo and behold, it was a very popular item. And I was like, this is one person. I didn't do a poll. I didn't do a survey monkey. This was one person who said it. And I was like, let me just see. And I put it up on my story, and my Instagram story. I made a little mock-up of this long sleeve shirt, and lo and behold, like she said, everyone, like hundreds of messages. Like, oh my God. Yes, please make that. So we made that sweatshirt, and we didn't order a large quantity. I don't remember the numbers, but it wasn't a lot, because sweatshirts are not cheap.
Yeah.
Even at wholesale prices, we're like, let's not get a ton of these. But whatever amount that we did get, we sold out immediately. And I was like, I just love that, because I was like, I listened to one person. It was one person of a lot of DMs. I'll oftentimes open DMs, and someone will say, oh, you'll probably never see this. And I'm like, but actually I did. I know it's a lot, but it's still likely. So, listening is a huge part of how I even sustain the business to this day. And what I found is that, I may not be a natural business person. I've had to learn a lot, but I do know how to listen. I do know how to observe. I do know how to take notes. So yeah, for anyone listening who may struggle with feeling like they don't have the business expertise or the marketing expertise, just practice listening. And that can that can teach you a lot about what content to make, what products to create. So, yeah.
No, I love it. And if I find a resource, I'll definitely put it in the show notes. But I took it was like either a class or book or something. And that's what the whole thing was about. It was like, take the time to like look around, look on Pinterest, look at what who your followers are following, look at the images that they like the most, like start paying attention to what they like, because I think a lot of people, we just guess, right? But it's like, no, all the information you need is actually right there in front of you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's overwhelming because it's so much to look at.
It is, yeah.
And yeah, but if you can just if you can just find like, what are you naturally drawn to and start paying attention to your behavior, then you'll know what kind of behavior to look at in others. Like one thing I've started to do is like, you know, in quarantine days, I'm on Netflix quite a bit. And sitting there, I pay attention. I've started to notice which thumbnails do I stop on. And I ask myself, why? I'm like, what about that thumbnail made me stop? What about the description made me say, see more, press play? And, you know, what about this one made me skip over it? And you'll start to see that there's a way that you, even though you can't get in someone else's head, the more you start to pay attention to yourself, you can start, that helps you figure out even what kind of questions to ask. Or, you know, if you're trying out, like, let's say let's take a t-shirt example, and you're designing 2 t-shirts, make them different enough to see which ones people gravitate toward. And then take that one and say, okay, well, now let me try 2 different versions of this. Let me try a pink one and a yellow one and see what happens. And just paying attention to all those little things, you can learn a lot. And it gets really fascinating from that point, I think.
No, I love it. Now, question. So how do we get from Morgan Shop to Garden 24?
Yes. So after about, I want to say, it may have even been 2 months without a name. You know, it's like a baby without a name. We had our actual baby. He has a name, but the shop baby, didn't have a name, and I didn't even know where to start. So I think what I did was, I was like, well, okay. One thing I know is that if I include something that has significance to me, even if I quote unquote regret it later, I can always point back to like, okay, well, it has significance, so I'm just going to leave it and let it be. So the number 24 is my favorite number. My birthday is February 4th, and just a couple other reasons. And I was born in Los Angeles. Kobe was my favorite player. 24, and he's number 24. So yeah, anyway, that's a lot of, there's like 12 different things. Number 24.
It's like, this
and
is
I was
it,
like, okay, that's a special number. So why not just have that in there? And then I just started to look at the overall theme of what I was already doing. And I was like, I talk a lot about growth and growing. And so essentially I played around with different words that had to do with growing and growth. And eventually I got to the color green. And I was like, well, what's green? A garden is green. Oh, Garden 24. Okay. And it didn't really feel natural saying it for a while. But I was like, we got to have something, because Morgan Shop is not working. So, that ended up being why I picked it. And then also, it's just nearly impossible to find username handles and things like that. And,
oh my goodness! Don't even get me started. It's so it's like has everyone taken everything?
Yeah, exactly. Everything's taken, and I was like, you know what? This is, I guess, sort of maybe just like the rebel in me. I'm just like, I don't think that anybody would recommend that I put two numbers at the end of my name. I'm like that. I was like, I don't think that's the best. So that's exactly why I'm going to do it, because
Right.
I don't see a lot of other people doing it. So, yeah, I think that breaking the rules is incredibly valuable sometimes. And that's the place where I told, I was like, you know what? It's kind of random. But at the same time, it's not random to me because it does have significance. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. It took a few weeks kind of working with a lot of different words, but that's what we landed on.
So now that you, and definitely people, as if you're stationary and not in the car, of course, definitely go over to garden24.co just to check out the products. There's like planners and sketchbooks and mugs and stickers and all of my favorite things because I'm like a journal junkie, and everything is so gorgeous, beautiful. Love the color palettes, all of the things. But I know you had mentioned earlier that, you have like physical products come in. And I know sometimes creatives struggle with that, where they're like, do I actually order the products or do I use like these places like Printful or whatever, so I don't have to worry about, having to stock in my house. So how did you figure out what to do?
Yes. Okay. I could talk all day about that because I've been all over the map. Printful, Society 6, everybody, all the things. So at first, Printful, so, Printful's, they fulfill on demand. So you can do prints, you can do t-shirts, you can put your design on there, and so that way you don't have to hold the inventory, and, you don't have to buy inventory in advance. However, while I do love that model, especially if you're just starting out and you're just trying to see, like, let me even see if I want to sell a t-shirt. I think going that route is a good, just to test it out, because, sometimes you may have an idea, and then once you start getting into the nitty gritty of it, you might think that that's not really the direction I want to go. But if you're thinking, I have a few ideas, I think I really do want to try to get my message, my design, my illustration, my, message, whatever it is out there. Now, I know t-shirts is a way to go for a lot of people. And I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt right now. I love t-shirts. However, if you're in a position like I was in where you don't have any money, t-shirts, even at wholesale, are not cheap.
They are expensive. Yeah.
Yes. And one thing that we found, and there are many companies out there. There are also, I would say, especially if you're in a major city, you can probably find someone local as well. Print shops, people who sell prints, 8x10 prints, that is a lot more affordable. Now, I may be misquoting the exact numbers. I can't remember when we were ordering this quantity, but we were ordering, say, I want to say like 100 of a design of mine. And this is a design that just came directly off my Instagram. I just went and looked at popular pieces that I had shared and ones that I felt like I wanted to have printed. And that's how I picked. And I want to say, I mean, it was like $1 or $2. No, not even $2. It was $1 or less per print for 100. So that was something we could do. After we had sold those books, we were like, okay, we can invest in that. Like that's a little bit. I mean, at that time, that was still a lot of money for us to invest, but it was a small investment that it was just like, okay, we could try this out. And it was small enough that we felt comfortable that we could try it out. And so that's how we decided. And the reason why I still love prints, and then the second thing we added was stickers, which is also pretty affordable to print. Paper goods are they're easy to ship. They don't take up a lot of space. And they're affordable to have printed, especially if you're getting started out and you don't, because once you start getting into apparel, you're looking at sizes. And one thing that's important to me is
it gets tricky.
I want it to be good quality. I want it to be inclusive sizing. I have a lot of standards for like apparel, because I think about it like me myself, a consumer. I'm like, if I buy a shirt, like I want it to be able to fit right, and I want it to, I don't want to just sell like a cheap shirt. I want it to be a nice shirt. So with prints and stickers, it's a lot easier to get a nice sticker that anyone can use, whether they're using it on their laptop or their car or their water bottle. And with prints, I love doing 8x10 prints because I have a lot of college students in my audience. I have a lot of people who are in studio apartments and maybe want to decorate, but they may not have the space or the resources to buy, a massive print and, or a massive painting by an artist in a custom, $500 frame. Like, not everyone has those resources. So for me, and I will say that I have gotten some, and I think it was just like friendly cautionary advice from other people in the business saying your prices are too low. Like, you could charge way more for your art. And I absolutely agree. However, I did want to position myself in the marketplace, if you will, as someone who could help people who don't have the resources to buy a $40 or $50 print. That's who a lot of my customer is, that person. And I wanted to serve them. And I was like, yeah, I know I could make more and sell less, but as of right now, that's my customer. And I want to serve her, probably because I am her.
Right.
I'm like, I know what that feels like. Like, I spent most of my 20s not having a lot of money, and certainly not having enough money to decorate my house. I mean, our furniture is from IKEA. I mean, nothing wrong with IKEA, but it didn't go past that. And it's just now getting past that. Like, I bought a really nice chair for Christmas. Pretty proud of it. But
you're like, yes.
But I'm 30 now, so it got me a nice chair. But yeah, so I think about that person a lot. So I think it's when you're thinking about your products, think about who your customer is, but also who they're not. And that could be such a hard decision to make, because it's like, I don't want to exclude anyone, or I don't want to pick the wrong group. But just look around your house. What do you spend money on or not spend money on? What would you like to spend money on, but you can't seem to find it in your price range? So yeah, that kind of goes back to looking within and looking at your own behaviors, and that can give you some insight as to where to start. But yes, I do recommend paper goods.
That's I like it. They're easy, simple, but still can touch others. Yeah.
And it's also really easy to give as a gift as well. Apparel is not always easy to give as a gift because you have to know someone's size, and that can get tricky. But I would say that a lot of our and I didn't even anticipate this, but it's what's happened. A lot of our sales actually come from people who are giving gifts to one another, and that's something that's even shocked me during COVID-19 and it's been.
I was just about to ask you about that. Like, how has COVID changed your business?
Oh my goodness, yes, it has definitely changed it. I'll start with like the sort of some insight that I wasn't expecting. And because my first thought was just like, okay, we're going to have to buckle down. I'm like, people don't have resources to, buy prints and stickers right now. Like, we're going to have to figure something out. However, I was really surprised because, again, I'm reading DMs, I'm reading comments, I'm reading stories. I was really surprised by how many people, because they couldn't hang out with their friend for their birthday, it's like, okay, I want to buy these stickers for my friend. Like, I'm going to spend a few dollars and buy these stickers to encourage my friend. And I was like, oh, that's okay. That is a way that people can still, that we can still serve people in this time. And that really surprised me. I wasn't anticipating that. So yeah, that's the first thing. And then sort of the just major curveball was that our goal for 2020 was to start launching events. And we actually we were headed to New York, Minneapolis, Portland, a few other places this spring. And because I absolutely I love sharing my art, but I love teaching. I love showing other people how to do what I do as well. And this was all based on that. I was like, I just want to go. And we were already selling tickets, and we had our venues and our vendors, everything ready to go. And yeah, that just our whole sweaty plan. Yeah, that was our huge focus for the year was events. And so, yeah, it definitely got wiped out. That was a lot of revenue that we thought was going to come in, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we just had to cancel everything, which is really tough. And, yeah, I think we started canceling around, I want to say March 12th, March 13th or something, like right around the time it was starting to get really bad. So, yeah, it was
all
really
that time. I know that because I was supposed to go to this conference called Craftcation. It's for crafters. It's totally nerding out. And I just thought about it. It takes them like almost a year to ramp up for this, and they had to completely cancel it. So I can't even imagine like all the things you had to do, you know, just to like.
Yeah, it was a lot of moving parts, and I actually, so back in October, we actually hired a team, and thankfully we've been able to keep our team and everybody working, and they've been amazing. And helping with a lot of that, because a lot of moving parts, and a really hard thing for one or even two people to do. So really grateful for them. And so yeah, we've really had to pivot to being a remotely run business now, and just working from our homes. So yeah, it's tough because we had actually just gotten a studio space to do events in.
Oh goodness!
So that's not going to be happening, right? we had a much smaller office, and we were like, oh my goodness, we can do events. And we had done market research. We had looked in our area and seen that a lot of my audience is actually in our area, and just we're like, oh, we could really do something here and just foster community and give people, like, I had a whole plan. Like, I was like, I want to do programs for high schoolers, and I was just to the moon back. So yeah, that's on pause right now, and it's been hard. I've had some really tough moments, you know, just trying to process that, because, you know, even though I'm so grateful to still have work, you know, it's still, there's a lot of people grieving dreams right now, and that's okay. You know, it's okay to grieve a dream. You know, even if you're grateful for what you do have, you're grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm grateful to still have work. Yeah. And at the same time say, oh, we had all these plans, and, you know, we can't do that now. So yeah, I am definitely still thinking about that all the time, and I can't wait till the day that we we get to do it again. And I just see it as, I'm like, you know what, this is just time to even just prepare for that day even more. I've been reading a lot of books on teaching art and teaching writing. So I was like, you know what, this is great. I can spend some more time researching and really working on the back end, and we'll get back to that one day. So
yeah. And even like the studio, or, you know, the place that you rented out, like maybe you'll do virtual kind of workshops there, you know, set up a nice camera and just temporarily use that until, you know, all of this kind of, well, it won't go back to normal, but goes back to a place where we can all hang out again.
Yeah,
you know,
that's actually my plan. I want to, this summer, I'm going to launch some creative workshops over Zoom, and I'm really excited about that. So I'm excited to see what comes of that.
Well, no, this is great. I mean, I just have a few wrap-up questions, but even before I get to that, you know, I just, for the listeners out there, you know, I love, like, you know, this transition took like a 4-year period. It sounded like, of course, like there was like that discovery in the beginning of your 20s, but then once you like found the thing, right? then you just kind of slowly started working at it. And then, because I'm wondering, like 4 years ago, did you ever think you would even have a team?
No,
Right?
I've never been a boss before. I feel like I actually preface like all of our conversations. I'm like, guys, you guys know I've never been a boss. They're like, yes, we know. You say it every day. No, I don't. I'm kidding. But I had no idea. I had no idea. My goal was just like, I just want to do something that's creative and it pays the bills enough that I don't have to worry about it every 2 seconds. And I could just be present and do what I'm really passionate about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So a couple wrap-up questions for you. How do you stay organized? Any tools, software, techniques, anything that you can share with the listeners?
That's a really good question. So it's really interesting. So in my physical space is not very organized. I'm sitting here looking at 2 stacks. Oh, that's actually 3 stacks of books and notebooks. And it's kind of like an organized chaos situation. I know where the stuff is and got 2 candles here, highlighters, all kinds of stuff. But I am very organized on my devices. So I create on the creative side, I create all of my work digitally, and I have been pretty disciplined. I don't know what started this, but I've been pretty disciplined about uploading all of my work to Google Drive almost immediately.
Oh, so that's good.
I will upload everything. So whether I'm working on Procreate, Adobe Sketch, or Adobe Fresco, I just started using that. Those 3 different apps. They all have functions where you can just, when you get ready to save the image, I don't save it to the iPad. I just immediately upload it to the drive. So that way I have access to it. And the reason why I like Google Drive is because they actually have a feature that allows you to search the text of an image. So a lot of my work, almost all of my work, has wording on it. So if I need it
that's true.
for any reason, I can just type that phrase in. And so I don't even necessarily always have to worry about naming the files because I know that I can go back and search. But I do try to name the files as much as I can. And then from there, once it's all in Google Drive, I organize all of my notes, like my journaling notes, my whatever I'm doing, I organize it by file type and by date and by the month. So I have a folder that's just for May 2020 art. That's all it is. It says 2020-05 art. I put the 2021, so that way it's alphabetized. And then I have another folder like that that's 2020-05 journal, and that's just all of my notes. And then I also keep, with my physical journals, then, obviously with those I just date and, write on that. But yeah, I organize. I like to use dates as a way of organizing. That's kind of simple. But it really does help me kind of keep organized. And then with client work, I do that slightly differently. I'll put my name and then X and then their company name. So if the company's coffee, it's like MH and X stands for Ann, coffee. And then I just have a whole folder for that. It's just partnerships. So I just have all of theirs. So that way, and because at first I was doing that by date, but then that got confusing because thankfully I've had opportunities where I've done client work and that they want to work with me again.
Right.
So, and then sometimes they'll reference something you've already done before and say, hey, can we go back and use that element or whatever? So it was good to just have all of their stuff in the folder. And the reason why I name it with my name in there is because I send that folder to them. So I put everything, all the assets, everything I've ever done with them in that folder so they have access to it. And I put my name on there because obviously they're working with other people other than just me. So, just putting MHN on there, Morgan on there, that helps them. So So yeah, I don't know if that was too specific.
No, was perfect. I mean, because people know I nerd out on systems. Like, I'm all about the productivity. I be harassing
Yes,
people
I
all the
love it.
time. I just sent out a newsletter talking about business rituals and what I'm like all about like
I love
having
it.
systems, being organized, and finding a system that works for you, right? Because I'm like
Mm-hmm.
hardcore. Somebody else might not be as hardcore, but as long as you find something that works, then you're good,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's okay to try until you find the right thing. And I feel like I've been through many versions of what I'm doing right now. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. I'm like a huge Procreate person, and I use Photoshop, love Photoshop. But I keep hearing about this fresco. And now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, do I need to download this on my iPad?
Okay. So here's the thing. So I actually think Procreate, I prefer Procreate, just the layout, the way it's structured, the ease of use. I just feel like Procreate is the better app. However, Adobe, there's this brush creator named Kyle Webster, and he works exclusively with Adobe. And his brushes, oh my goodness. Like I have searched long and hard up and down the internet to try to find Procreate brushes that compare, and I can't find anything because he has a lot of live brushes, so like a lot of watercolor brushes that it feels real,
like you are actually using.
If nothing else, like I think it's worth it to just mess around with the brushes. So what I started to do is I've started to use Adobe Sketch and Fresco to kind of create some elements. But I actually am kind of transitioning our workflow into Procreate because I just think it's a little bit easier to use. So
I've got to test it out. I've gotten into, like, I was talking to the last episode to people. I'm a big time journaler. I have multiple journals. It's a problem, but they're organized. Each one serves a purpose.
Doesn't sound like a problem at all.
But I'm getting into GoodNotes now and doing digital journaling. I don't know if you've gotten into that now yet, like digital planning.
I haven't. I'm not familiar with GoodNotes.
Just go into Pinterest and do just like, some people use GoodNotes, some people use Notability. But if you go into Pinterest and just do digital planner, like people create these planners for the iPad.
Am I about to go down?
You're about to go down a rabbit hole. Like you're gonna go down. But it's so amazing because I'm like, it would, even though I love my, journal that I can walk around with, I also like something that is on the iPad, or I can like just, pull up on the phone if I want to, and still do some really cool stuff, bring in stickers and have it kind of feel like a journal. So it's kind of like my thing right now. So sorry ahead of time.
Okay, so I have like a really specific question to ask you about GoodNotes. Is it like, can you do multiple pages like within a document?
Yes.
Like, okay. I might have to look into that.
So, for example, like I
do like that. So, yeah, that's interesting. Well, thank you.
Yeah, because I could totally see your work in there too. Because like I just did for my followers, I did like this free to-do list, and so basically I did it in Photoshop. I probably could have, done it in Procreate too, but it just felt more comfortable doing it on Photoshop on my desktop. And then you just save it out as a PDF, and then I duplicated it where it's like 14 pages, and then people can just upload it to GoodNotes, and they can also continue to create additional pages.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm on the GoodNotes Instagram now. Yep, I think
I'm thinking, just looking at your stuff, I feel like as a journaler and as a note taker, you should have GoodNotes.
Thank you. Yes. Well, thank you. I am absolutely going to download this now. Yes.
Yeah, and YouTube has so many videos. It's pretty ridiculous because there was one day where I was like, Nache, you need to stop watching digital planning videos.
I can't believe I've never thought to look that up. Like, I've actually looked up a lot of note-taking videos on YouTube, but it's so crazy that I literally make all this work digitally, but I never thought to look up digital notes. So
yes,
this is fascinating.
yes.
Wow.
You're gonna love it.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Wow. I think maybe the reason why I haven't thought about it is because my dad is like really techie, and he uses Microsoft OneNote, and he's been using it since like the first tablet was ever created. So I think maybe in my mind I'm just like, that's what my dad does. So yeah, I'm gonna go check it out though.
No. It's like the best $8 I've spent on Good Notes by now, because you could really like, you could take in like your specific artwork you've already created, and you can even like crop it. You could do cool headers. It doesn't have like, they try to mimic kind of like the brush strokes that like Procreate has, sort of, but you're not going to get that. So you would actually have to create a fancy header in Procreate, but then you can just save it to wherever, Google Drive, Photos, Dropbox, and then you just slide it right into GoodNotes, and then you have this beautiful header that you created in Procreate. So it's like this seamless system, and like once you start doing it, you're like, I kind of like this. I like it.
Well, I am really intrigued. I will have to let you know how it goes.
Yes, please.
Sounds like right up my alley. Yes.
And then just for the listeners, like, can you just let them know how you stay motivated?
Yes, I actually feel like I say this a lot, but I'm one of those people. I need a lot of inspiration and motivation. That's probably why I create the way I do. A lot of my work is very encouraging and motivational minded. Like, that's just sort of because I get in my head a lot. I really wish I could say I don't, but I do. I do compare myself to others. I do look at other people's work and say, oh, wow, they're way more professional than I am, or they're this or they're that. I do that. So honestly, I listen to lots of podcasts. I watch lots of TED Talks. I watch the same TED Talks over and over again. Some of them I almost have memorized. And I try to stay in touch with, and I feel like actually this season of COVID-19 has actually been making me do this even more. Just staying in touch with like-minded friends. Yeah. I think sometimes I actually deleted all my social media apps off my phone for a week, and it was really good because I still had them on my iPad because I still have to use them for work. But I deleted them all off my phone. And during that week, I started thinking of quite a few friends of mine who don't have a lot of followers, whose pages don't always pop up on my Instagram. And I was like, you know what? We have a lot in common. Like, these are the people that I need to be talking to. I'm like, I shouldn't be, spending all of my time like looking at people online who are actually great people doing wonderful things, but I'm not connected to them. Like, they're not a part of my community. So that's a big thing for me, is realizing, even beyond all my TED Talks and podcasts, like who can I talk to? Like, I have a few friends now who we recommend books to each other. We recommend books to each other, and we like nerd out together, and sometimes we interact on social media and sometimes we don't. They actually both live in different states. And I'm just like, you know what, this right here, really encourages me. And then finally, I feel like this is kind of more maybe a cliche answer, but my family, like I've been really blessed to have family that even though we're all different, like they're all, like I mentioned, my dad, like he's a note taker. Like my parents, they love to read and study things. And like I literally was FaceTiming with my parents yesterday, just talking about random Civil War facts. Like that's what we do. I was also homeschooled, so I probably should give a little context as to as to my randomness. But I was just like, I'm grateful to have people in my life that even, even if it's just a few people, that we could just kind of nerd out together on things we care about. I think that's really huge for creatives, because it can get really lonely. It can really start to feel like, what am I doing? Like, who are my people? And yeah, so that's been huge for me, is realizing that my people, even if we're just like a small little group, that's special. And, I really want to continue to nurture that. So, yeah.
Now, I love that you said that too, because, what I found is, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, like, my friends, like I have a lot of people I've still talked to from 15, 20 years ago, but
I love it.
They might not like journaling like I do, right? Like the stuff I nerd out on, the people that I've known for a while, they're just like, Nache, we're not trying to talk about no good notes, digital planners. Like, no, let's talk about what's on Netflix, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's like you kind of need both, It's like you want people, like, yeah, absolutely. But yes, we'll have to catch up again on good notes, because I think I'm a fan.
Yeah, I mean, but you need that. Like my mom, for example, which I love, it kind of goes with family and having those people. I told her about it, and she was like, I'm going to download it immediately. Send me all the videos you have to teach me. And then she sent me her first spread, and I'm like, I love you.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I love it. I love it.
But no, I love your answer. And then if you could just tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yes, so I am Morgan Harper Nichols pretty much everywhere, on Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube every once in a while, and then Morgan H. Nichols on Twitter. But yeah, if you come find me on social media, you can kind of see a lot of the stuff that I make, and I oftentimes will reference to my shop there as well, Garden 24. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and sharing your story.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. This was very motivational. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. So you made it to the end. This is one of my longer episodes, but I wanted to keep every single moment in there. This just lets me know you are hungry for knowledge and you are ready for business, my friend. So please take all the things and do what you need to do this summer. I can't wait to bring you guys some more amazing guests. Please do a couple things for me. One, sign up for my newsletter. Go to nachesnow.com/about. On my about page, you can sign up for the productivity or the business newsletter. Also, remember to subscribe to the podcast, so as soon as I'm back up, you'll get notified. And if you love this episode, which I'm hoping you did since you're listening to my voice right now, please rate it 5 stars or give it a thumbs up on YouTube, and please share it. Sharing is caring. And then last but not least, look out for my new storefront so you can find out how to support the podcast. I'm going to have some digital planners on there. Even I'm working on my Life Cleanse journal right now. I'm making it digital so you can actually write on it in good notes. I'm so excited about it. I almost have it done. I should have it done within the next week. So depending on when you're listening to it, it should be for sale. But if you just go to nachesnow.com/store, eventually it will take you to my dreamsplansIdeas.com storefront website. And I'm super excited. I've got like a whole bunch of stuff in store for you guys over there. Other than that, I just want to say Have a beautiful summer as I take a break. I'm hoping to be back at the end of summer. And if you have some ideas for guests, please shoot them to me. And if it makes sense for what I've got going on next season, I'll definitely consider them. I'm always looking for creative women, entrepreneurs that would be fabulous guests. And remember to follow me over at Instagram at Nache Snow, NACHESNOW. And I'll be sharing all the things, business stuff, and just life stuff. And if you're more of an artsy person, check me out at Creative Route on Instagram. That's where I make all kind of stuff, you know? Anyway, if you love this episode, please comment or send me a message. Hello at Nache Snow. Send me a DM or just comment under Morgan's picture. All right, you guys. Thank you for listening, and take care of yourself. And remember, be the change. All right, take care. Because I love that you're still listening, I've left a little Easter egg. If you would like the Life Cleanse Journal in digital form so you can fill it out in GoodNotes or Notability, I will give it to you for $5 if you email me by June 13th, 2020. All you have to do, subject line, $5 journal. Send it to hello@nachesnow.com, and I will send you the information you need so you can get a journal that's normally $35 for $5, and it's almost 200 pages that you can use in my favorite app, GoodNotes. All right? If you're interested, email me now. All right. Take care.